I guess I'll just speak of two streams of work that I'm engaged in. One is the connection between universities and communities, and and how the resources in universities can become more engaged with the needs as determined by communities. The other piece that I'm working on is related to that, but it's more at the international level, and that's the co-construction of a master's degree that would allow people who are interested in community development, but who are working in places in India or places in Africa and can't afford to travel, don't wish to leave their jobs, can do so, studying on the internet. And this is being developed jointly by the University of Victoria and a non-governmental organization based in India. But I think what I speak to today is in terms of what's going well, is the movement around the understanding about how knowledge, which is generated both in community and university, can be used better to solve difficult, complex community problems. And I've been working over the last year on this notion of, it's a national conversation that will occur on the 2nd of June, and that we're calling a Knowledge Commons. The idea behind the Knowledge Commons is that, like the natural commons, which over the years has become privatized, the common spaces that we once shared as human beings are all cut up and privatized, and there's scarcely any sort of common land left anymore. And that's put, in some ways, it's put our biosphere at risk, and it's because it's difficult for us collectively to operate around around our biosphere on ecological issues. That's why climate change is so problematic. We've got businesses who don't want any change because they have a short-term profit gain, and we've got governments who have limited territorial capacity to act, and so forth. So the same thing you might imagine around knowledge. Because at one time, 3,000-4,000 years ago, knowledge that existed, it flowed inside our communities amongst everybody, from those who had the knowledge to those who needed the knowledge. So if you needed something around health, you would seek out the person who had become known in your community as somebody who is good at finding medicines, or maybe setting bones, or sitting and talking with people in a more what we call today, a counseling kind of approach. If you were going to be building a new home, you'd quickly find the people in your community who were really good, at mixing the mud, finding the kinds of wood that you need for the framework, and so forth. If you were raising crops and you were worried about preserving the crops, at the end of the season, you quickly would find who were the people who knew the techniques, the grain storage techniques, so that would keep the grain dry and away from the animals, and so forth. And this knowledge flowed throughout the community, and there wasn't, there weren't barriers to who could create knowledge and who could use knowledge. Little by little, we have broken up the knowledge commons. We've created universities. We've created research institutions. We've created religious bodies. We've created science. We've created disciplines. We've created sectors. And so, when a community is trying to use knowledge, trying to understand, what other people have done in other places and all of that, it's fragmented. The kind of knowledge is fragmented. So in a very practical way, how can we see that? If you are interested, if you're seeking out a scholar to help you in your community, you have to understand what the anthropologists do. You have to understand what sociologists do. You have to understand what economists do. You have to know what civil engineers do. You have to know what clinical psychologists do. You have to know what counseling psychologists do. You have to, somehow understand this very complicated, very fragmented way that we deal with knowledge. Why do we fragment the knowledge? We fragment the knowledge for many reasons, but one of them is because of the limitation of our brain. We have a very difficult time keeping a holistic, a whole kind of, global, spiritual, all of that stuff, all going at the same time in our brain. So we finally say, well, let's just deal with I just want to deal with the color of your shoes. I don't care about the rest of your clothing. We've got a situation where funding, research funding comes from, there's one body that deals with scientific research, another body that deals with health research, another body that deals with the human aspects of society. But if you're living in a community where there's issues around traditional foods, is that science? Is that health? Is that the way in which people interact with one another? It's all three. But it's very difficult to find a scholar who is used to that interdisciplinary, integrative way of dealing. And if you find the person, you can't get your projects funded because, the Social Science Humanities Research Council, they won't fund health. The health people, well, they're a little more on the medical side. And the science people, that's a bit, we're not so interested in the application as, just give me the capital T theory, the fundamental nature of what you're trying to do. And that's not to speak of the fact that knowledge is created all over the place. Probably 96% of what we might call knowledge is created in community, in businesses, even in government offices, where people are trying to solve problems. But the kind of knowledge which the society thinks about as kind of knowledge is the kind of stuff that I've got in these books on this shelf in this room. And so what the Knowledge Commons project is about bringing together, scientific researchers, activists working on community economic development, on housing issues, on health issues, Aboriginal issues, with the funders, with university structures, with nonprofit organizations, people who are trying to make a difference in this society, who care about this planet, to bring them together to have a conversation around knowledge and society, and how can we strengthen the way that knowledge can be used to make this a better world. And that project is going well. The partners are falling into place. We're having a planning meeting. I'm speaking we're now in February of 2010. In March of 2010, we're going to have a planning meeting, and by June 2nd, in Montreal 2010, we'll have a national conversation. And the conversation is going. We welcome, involvement in that conversation. We're going to have an interactive website, a Ning. It's called a Ning. You probably know about this. It's a Ning website for people to get involved in the thing. And we're going to develop a 5-year agenda, national agenda, on taking a look at how knowledge can serve our communities and our people to make them a better place.